Yeah, your screen is visible.
Yeah, so I'd like to start with a basic question as to the roadmap to robotics. So there's no such specific roadmap to robotics. Like there are a lot of variations and there are a lot of ways in which you can get into this field. And I'm just presenting one of the ways in which I got into this field. And you can ask me any questions at the end of the session or throughout. Feel free to interrupt if you have any doubts as well. So yeah, so right now I'm in Bangalore right now and I'm working at Praveg. We are developing electric vehicles right now and also developing making them robo taxis, so a bit of autonomous driving and infotainment as well. So at Praveg I work as a firmware developer and I am developing central gateway using FreeRTOS stack. So those of you who might have pursued embedded courses at electronics, if you're from electronics and if you're pursuing embedded courses, FreeRTOS is a very good thing to understand and learn because it's used in it's applicable in a lot of fields in throughout the industry. And I'm also right now looking into autonomous driving solutions and infotainment. So autonomous driving solutions. So we are currently working with NVIDIA as our partner for developing autonomous driving solutions. So I have to look through sensors and peripherals and the drive computing unit and also make infotainment and the entire in-vehicle network work together. The major question is you might be curious to know how I got here and how I got other offers or I applied to other companies. So I didn't sit for the placements because during my time, uh, COVID pandemic had hit and there were not a lot of companies for robotics in our college. So I decided not to sit for the placements and majorly all of my applications were through LinkedIn and Glassdoor. Um, some people find it very great Naukri as the website Naukri for applying jobs. So if you're in the computer science department or if you want to get into computer science aspect of things or if you want to get into IT in general, then Naukri is a very good platform. So if you want to have a job anyways and you don't know where to go, Naukri is a good place to start. But Naukri is only limited for India. So if you want to apply outside of India or to a professor or to a research company or anywhere else, Glassdoor is a good place. Even LinkedIn is a pretty good place. So this current offer I got it via LinkedIn. So I messaged the HR that I'm looking for a job, and we had the interview and like they hired me. So like last year there was a huge pandemic, so there were no one was almost having any jobs. So one of the very nice ways to apply for jobs is to also send a lot of cold emails and um, go ahead and straight away ask for emails for HRs on CTUs of small startups. So for my so there's a company in Mumbai called Quidditch Labs. Some of you might have known. It was earlier in TBI. Now it's moved to Andheri East, I suppose. So they build drones and they are tie up with BCCI for IPL and all sorts of movie filmmaking company. So during that time as well, I just straight away went to the company and asked for a job. I had an interview then and there, and I was selected there. Um, then sending cold email is also pretty helpful. So, um, like you can if you want to get into a certain company or if you want to get into a certain domain, you can just find out what companies are good into that domain. So for example, here in Bangalore, I have NVIDIA has its headquarters in Bangalore. So if you are not able to find any jobs on their website on the portal, or if you want to get into NVIDIA, for example, I wanted to get into NVIDIA. So what I did was I connected around 10 to 15 people on NVIDIA, recruiters, senior officers, senior engineers and developers, and shot them cold emails and cold messages. And so So that sometimes helps, sometimes it doesn't, but it's always a good idea. Or the best case scenario is also you can go straight into their office and ask for an email for HR. So that is that's how I got an interview from Nvidia as well. But I didn't like the job, and the profile they had was not suited. So I had to I stayed in the current company as well. Then if you're in primarily in second or third year, internshala, job fairs, and the family reference. These are the best, one of the best ways to get a internship. So a good, decent internship gives you a good, decent job because in industry, even in industry, not really your academics are not really counted. So it all depends on what do you want to pursue after your bachelor's. For example, if you want to have a master's plan and go for higher studies, then decent to good enough internship is great, and academics are very helpful. But if you want to have a job for few years and then go for higher education or other plans, then your academics might not be the best bet, and whatever you do in your co-curricular activities, that will most likely help you in getting past this field. Earlier, um, it was mentioned that I was working with Quidditch Innovation Labs. So I worked there for 2 years. It was a part I had tied up with them for my major and minor year project. So throughout my third and fourth year, I just did one project, which was automating cinematography. So we had a camera, and its job was to track a certain object on a moving platform. So it had around 3 degrees of freedom, you can say. So one was a moving platform, the second was a gimbal controlling the camera, and third was the camera itself. So it was majorly making in sync all of the three things along with the object. And I also interned with them for like 3 or 4 months during my second end of second year, I suppose. So there also I had got to work with drones and I work on the sensor fusion stack. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And then I also found one more company in Mumbai itself. It was Taxier Aviation. So it was a lot of internship as such. There was nobody to guide me. So it was a freelance project. Um, so the project was to build self-deploying parachutes. So it was a drone company again, and they were supplying in agricultural drones. So a lot of times drones lose their control mid-air, or there might be some crash, or some bird might flow into it, or there can be a lot of reasons because of which you might find a parachute on a drone very very helpful. If a drone crashes and it hits someone on the ground, it's almost fatal. It's a very expensive drone and it is having, like say, carbon fiber rotors. So, those kind of rotors can like cut through almost anything. So you don't want to have those kind of drones flying above and crashing onto people. So for that scenario, I had I it was a freelance, I had to build an end-to-end solution to make sure that if ever there's a fault in the drone or it is crashing, the job was to simply cut all the power and deploy a parachute so that no one is hurt and even the drone is possibly safe from much damage. Uh, so in these two projects, like I had, if you want, we can discuss it later, but I had primarily used STM32 microcontrollers, and I had used ARM Mbed OS for developing this. And in my major minor project, I had written it in bare metal C for the embedded part, and I had primarily used OpenCV and Jetson and Raspberry for the image processing stuff. Uh, yeah, so it brings me to a major question: is why do people want to pursue robotics? Um, so there are a couple of reasons why you should ideally not pursue robotics. Um, it's really difficult to get into robotics. There's a very very high competition. Uh, it's okay if you're doing it at just college level, but if you are trying to apply for jobs and trying to get a decent salary as compared to your peers in IT or in computer science, it's really, really difficult for junior level positions. Even if you go for a internship or a freelance project as well, it's very highly unlikely that you will get highly paid as compared to if you're doing something such as web designing, or if you're in marketing or promotions or PR side of things. So robotics is really, really difficult to work with. And if you're doing any sort of internship or freelancing, you need to really buy expensive tools to work on expensive components for to make sure the product is working fine and doing it what's supposed to be. There are a lot of things burn off a lot of times, things get damaged all the time. You have to fix it up continuously. It's a very, very uh, it's a very, very high iterative loop with what can you say, with too much effort and a relatively very, very low reward. And it's very difficult to develop that right skill set, and not a lot of people will train you throughout your life to be good in robotics, because things might work on paper, it's easy, but then when you get down to doing the dirty work, uh, a lot of times things get messed up. Until and unless you don't have a hands-on experience, it's really, really difficult to a good get a good exposure in robotics. Um, so, like, these are the major reasons why you should ideally not pursue robotics. But the other side of the coin, which is why should you pursue robotics, is because once you start getting really good into a field, you ideally get a lot of demand throughout the industry, you can say. When winners take all. So if you're particularly good in any particular domain, let's just say control systems. If you're really, really good in control systems and have a few years of work experience in this field, you can have a crazy good package outside of India, of course. Outside of India, in US or in Europe as well, or even in Singapore or in Taiwan. So these countries are the central hubs of robotics. So if you are really good at something in robotics, and not a lot of people can compete you in that, you'll get highly paid in that field. But it will take time to get to that point. Um, then second reason is great opportunities outside India. So India is not really the best place for pursuing robotics. As I mentioned earlier, like you, half of the times you don't get the proper components. There's not proper mindset for robotics as well. No one teaches you robotics very well. If you have to buy anything from outside, like nothing is manufactured in India, you have to either buy it from websites either from US or from China. Like if you want to really have genuine components from Japan. So, like last year, also we had tried to buy a few components, and last year AliExpress had closed down, so that was a big issue for us. So, like a lot of constraints are there in India for getting robotics or getting good quality components. So it's very, very expensive to import them from outside. Uh, but if you are living outside, let's say if you are living in US and if you just want to buy a battery, uh, it's like $4 or $5 or $10, which is like nothing. But if you compare it with Indian rates, it's the same price. It's not a relatively low price, so you have to pay the same amount of price, but it's a lot more expensive in India. Um, and the one of the best reasons is it's fun. When things work, you feel like you feel great. That's a nice part of robotics, and you like to solve problems, everyday problems. Then it's a really good field for you. So if you see a problem in your everyday life and think maybe I can improve it, or you would like to work upon that, or so for me, like I had an issue with home automation in my first years of engineering. So during those times, I had worked upon home automation. So I just simply went online, bought a few controllers, bought a few relays, hooked up the home wiring to the relay. So it's fun to solve problems. So when it works, it's worth it. But it takes a really long time and a lot of patience to have it as to reach it to a stable position. Um, then I assume, like, since most of you are already in second or third year, this slide is of a bit high relevance to you people. So if you want to, if you already have offers in robotics companies, well and good. If you don't, or if you just want to maybe try and improve it, or try to improve yourself in the overall domain, what you can do is, like, what I personally found helpful for me was Coursera was pretty good for me. So I had done around 3 or 4 specializations on Coursera. One was for FreeRTOS, one was for like basics of DSA, C++ programming, algorithms, and then one was for real-time operating systems. So it was primarily based on FreeRTOS and embedded systems. Then a lot of other courses are can be your scope courses. So I personally found the scope course by like Govind sir. If some of you are from electronics, you might find it useful as well. So it was a good fundamental course for me. So you just can't get a job or internship based on that, but it should ideally clear your fundamentals to a level on which you can build something and maybe get an internship or a job on that position. Then doing workshop also helps. Um, so in the first and second year of my college, like we had a lot of seniors who used to teach and do workshops. So in that time also I interacted a lot of with my seniors right now. I had interacted with a lot of them and they helped, like I had worked with them in a lot of projects throughout my third and fourth year. So it's very helpful to interact with your seniors right now as well. So those of you in second year, third year might go ahead and contact your seniors who are particularly good in robotics, so they can help you and they can guide you better as well. Or if there are workshops arranged by them, maybe you can try learning from them. Then second part is Linux. Yeah, it's almost synonymous with being good in robotics. So if you are bad at using Linux or you don't really have a firm grasp on Linux, um, then you'll have difficult times up ahead, in my opinion, because you choose whatever field, eventually it will, whatever field of robotics, eventually it will come down and boil down to Linux at some point of time. So maybe what you can do is start with, if you have not already done, start playing around with different distros of Linux. So you can go ahead and try Ubuntu, Debian, Manjaro, Fedora, Arch. Try dual booting your system, try triple booting your system. Then try compiling the source code of Linux. Go to the kernel hackers guide or just go to GitHub and look at the Linux source code, kernel source code. So that will clear a lot of your fundamentals if you want to get into firmware, or even not firmware, but it will just give you a very good idea of how the world is working right now. Uh, like majority of it is on Linux. So it will give you a really good understanding, and a lot of interviews will also be asking you questions on Linux as well. Yeah, then ideally you should pursue a lot of courses in like fundamentals of robotics. So if you want to pursue a career in robotics, you should have at least a very good grasp on like digital signal processing, control systems, and embedded systems, and a basic DSA programming. That's what I think, in my opinion, because these 4 things, and you can go into almost any domain you want, be it like sensor fusion, be it machine learning, or even be it yeah, be it pure embedded systems or control systems as well. A lot of these courses, a lot of times they overlap. Like having a firm grasp on these 3, 4 subjects, it's a very good tool to have. Then, like ideally, if you're in second and third year, You should have ideally done a few competitions, and if not, you can still do it. So a competition, it doesn't really matter if you won the competition or if you lost it. It will just, in my opinion, make you a better engineer. Try to do all of them by yourself instead of like hacking around in the group and offloading your work to someone else. So because when you do things by hand, it gives you a real sense of how things will fail in future, how you should plan in future, or how you should ideally plan a project and what is your best strategy to work upon something. Uh, for competitions as well, you can contact seniors, you can search the web. There's a lot of competitions and there's a lot of possible solutions. So when you try implementing stuff, it'll make you a better engineer. And if you show that in the resume, people will have a higher chance of hiring you. Personal projects. So if you don't have the time for a competition, or if you've just missed the deadline, or if it's just too tight for you, or you don't have enough budget for doing all the things mentioned, personal projects are also a great way to like showcase what all have you done, and it also tells as like how good an engineer are you. So what everyday problems do you solve? Do you have that critical thinking? So like I have just recently built my personal quad router. So that is a personal project. I built it just to do aerial footage of my city, like of the place I live. That's it. It's a fun project. It's a personal project. It doesn't really solve any problem, but it takes a lot of time to build it, and it's a good skill to showcase on my resume, I think. So personal projects also help, even if it doesn't really have any uh, particular view. But if you have just worked hard on it and you can just put it on your resume, it will be helpful for someone to hire you. Academics, as far as I know, no one really cares about academics in hiring process unless you are applying through a college placement cell. So if the placement cell is having good companies for robotics, just make sure your cutoff matches to the required cutoff. And that's majorly it. Uh, like also try to be in touch as much as possible with your placement cells. If you're just uh, trying to get a job via college, else it's not really a deal breaker. Academics, even like personally, even when in my company we hire people, no one really looks at academics. Neither has anyone ever looked in my previous companies, nor anyone ever looks at my academics whenever I give interviews at different companies. Um, then presentation is the probably one of the most important aspects of getting a good offer. So your resume should be clean and concise. There should not be a lot of bloat stuff in your resume. Bloat, like you don't want to make your resume thick and very difficult to read. It should be easy to read and to the point. Like in universities, people say to put all of your projects, make a two-page resume. It's okay for universities, but as far as job applications are concerned, I'll just my person like in my company also HR barely looks at a resume for 30 to 60 seconds. So people are mostly looking for keywords as to what have you done in your bachelor's. So for your initial screening round itself, even if you need to clear that, you just need to put relevant details into your resume for it to be even accepted as a resume. Else it will be simply rejected because there's too much bloat on it. And if you're also applying to corporate jobs, so there are big MNCs. I don't remember the name. Yeah, maybe I had applied to Scient, Cyient. So, or Scient or two, three more major companies. So those have a ATS, if you might have heard, application tracking system or something like that. So it's machine learning based algorithm which will just shortlist most relevant resumes for the HR. So even if you put a lot of details in your resume, there's a very high chance that it might not even be read by someone. So it's a very important thing to have a very clean and free of unnecessary details resume. Like you don't really need to put all of your trivial college competitions in your resume. Um, like let's just say you want badminton competition or any trivial competition which is not really of much sense, then instead of putting that, you might rather not put that and let the focus be on the major of the work that you've done. Uh, then, yeah. So the next point is relevance to the applied position. So if you just want to get into a particular field, um, relevance, like it should be relevant to you. So let's just say if you are even trying for robotics, if you just want to get into point cloud processing and sensor fusion, and all you have ever worked on is uh, let's say basic wiring stuff or a completely isolated topic from that. So there's a very low chance that someone will ever hire you for that position. But nevertheless, it makes sense to apply for such a position because you never know. Um, then, like since most of you are in second and third year, I found like few of these companies which can help you get a good deal, like which I found pretty useful myself during my bachelor's and still now as well. So if you get a internship or a job in one of these companies as well, it's pretty good right now. So Quidditch was my earlier company. It's on the West right now. You can just go ahead and try with them if you want to get into cinematography and sports broadcast. Um, then there's a nice company called Idea Forge as well. So these guys have a tie-up with what do you call Indian Defense. So they just won the defense sector contract with India. So all of the defense sector drones are being provided by these people right now, Idea Foods. So if you just try to get into like if you can try to get into that, it's well and good. Drone Stark, it's also one of the companies again in Andheri itself. So these guys also helped me during my major mine area project. They are also building drones, and I suppose they particularly work for Mumbai Police for drone footage and aerial broadcasting throughout the Mumbai, as far as I know, as far as I remember. The really nice companies for a job here in Bangalore right now or internationally as well as Raputa Robotics. So it's a big traditional company, but even that will give you a high pay, and it's also here in Bangalore and in Tokyo as well. So if you want to try, you can just if you have time and you can learn Japanese or German, then you can most likely try to this company as well. There are a lot of companies worldwide. I have included a very few of them. Maybe we can discuss more in the Q&A session. Uh, there's this company called Sagar Defense Engineering. So my senior or like 3 years ago, an alumni of S.P.I.T also works in this company. You can search him up on LinkedIn. Chirag Shah. So he's working with this company right now, and they are also building drones, and they're also a pretty good partner of military right now. Even this is a pretty nice company to get into robotics right now. Then in Bangalore, there are a lot of new companies for robotics coming up, but those are startups. So maybe you can try in working in a few of these companies as well. So Vogo, it's a scooty company. Vogo and Bounce, it's a scooty company. So they make electric scooties. Then my current company, it's Pravik. We are making electric vehicles. Even we are also hiring a lot of interns these days. A lot of companies in aerospace are Skyroot. Um I think you can also try Aether or Ola as well. These companies, Ola, it's a bit difficult to get into, but just try contacting any one of the seniors. Aether, you might get the internship as well. Then there is Exponent Energy as well. This is for battery infra, so maybe you can also try this company. Um, then Bounce is also electric scooty company. So even those guys have a lot of IoT stuff going on because all these scooters are they don't have keys, so a lot of them are controlled by a phone. So a lot of IoT part comes into play. So if you get into startups, it won't be the highest paying, but you'll get to learn a lot. And or any of the companies, uh, at the initial phases, you will have a lot of difficulty getting very good high package, but you'll have a lot of exposure if you get, in my opinion, any one of these companies. The incubation and TBIs of IIT or SPTBI as well. Just look if it's a nice, like it's a nice company, if they have a decent, stable income at least, or they are decent funded, so that it's just not a time pass startup. Uh, and just try to get into a startup if you just want to learn a lot about robotics. Uh, or if you even want to go as a research assistant in a lot of IITs. So you can even try IITs for a research assistantship. Nice thing about IITs is a lot of times IIT professors have a lot of crazy funding, so you just don't have to expect that you'll be paid very less in IITs or anything as well. Even research assistantship positions, although they'll pay you less, but down the lane, like they have a lot of infrastructure and proper infrastructure for huge deal of projects. Okay, so now enough talking. A major component I wanted to share was safety as well. I just want to just have interactive session now. I just want to know your thoughts on autonomous driving and drones and majorly safety challenges you think could be there in these fields right now. Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. So, guys, whatever suggestions you might have, you can put it in the chat box.
It's no, it's okay. You can just speak it out as well. Not a big deal.
Yeah, that would be fine as well.
Yeah, uh, like it's okay. Like safety, it's a very important concern, and like if you have a drone flying above your head and you really don't know what are the possible implications of it, it's a very bad idea. For example, like during my tenure at Quidditch, in shoot of 2019, I suppose a drone had crashed, but it was luckily crashed into the stadium beside and on not on someone's side. So during the IPL, the drone had crashed, so that was a pretty big accident. Um, yeah, so this is a pretty vague topic, but just we can like I just want to know your thoughts on safety issues for in general drones and autonomous driving. Let's have an interactive session. Come on, guys, no answers.
What I think that drones are little bit means their safety is little bit up and down. But I think drones are a good advantage for like many things, like things which before some years the shooting was done using helicopter and all. So now we can do that with using drones. So I think safety is a little bit uh, compromised, but it has more advantages. That's what I think.
Okay. Okay. Any more answers? Like, how can we improve the drone space primarily, and then we can also move on to autonomous driving? Okay, cool. So, no more thoughts on drones. Any more thoughts on autonomous driving? How can we make more vehicles safer, or your thoughts on autonomous driving and safety issues pertaining to that? A lot of companies are launching autonomous vehicles. So, like Waymo has already started in United States, in a lot of San Francisco, or in a few countries in Phoenix and Arizona. Even Zoox is starting there. So, your thoughts? Cool. No issues. People just you can just speak up. It's college event only. No one will say you anything, even if you're wrong or anything like that. Okay, so cool. No answers then. Um, I think um, see, like most of you guys should ideally, if you want to really get into the field of robotics, you can just try attending a lot of meetups. So you can just add it here as well. What helps in getting offers? You can just add meetups as well. So there are plenty good online communities where you can just discuss robotics. So I'll just say one of this in which I go. It's there's an app called Meetup. I don't know if you guys are aware of it. Um, so you can just interact worldwide with the people for robotics and what are they doing worldwide, or how are they developing their projects. So one is mentioned enthusiast robotics, enthusiast robotics, and then there's one more. I think robotics club. There's one more called Atlanta Robotics Meetups Club. So these are like you can just try attending one or two sessions. A lot of nice people come there, and you can discuss a lot about robotics is there as well. So people will come and they just usually present their projects and how are they implementing robotics. So you get an idea as to how people are doing their projects in the robotics, how is their approach. Um, mention robotics enthusiast Atlanta.
Sorry to interrupt. Kunal is asking that Tesla will take time to arrive in India due to road conditions. So that would be a problem.
Okay, yeah, that is a good answer. So Tesla will take time to arrive in India due to road conditions. Although Tesla will, like, as far as I know, for autonomous driving, there are legal constraints. So even if Tesla comes to India, they'll most likely have to disable their autonomous driving stack. So we won't be having really level 3 or level 2 autonomous driving features on the road. But yeah, that's a good point. So you can say road conditions as well.
So there's one more concern. Kaustubh asks that can drones be hijacked?
Drones can be, yeah, they can be ideally hijacked. So most drones work on a receiver and it's usually paired with a certain remote. It's in my personal as far as I know, it's difficult to hijack them a bit, but it's a lot more common for radio interference among drones. So during one time, I think in somewhere in Singapore recently, there was a swarm of drones and there was a radio interference. So, uh, so they had this aerial show of drones, and in that time, because of some radio interference, all of the drones started crashing. So it was raining drones that day. Um, then is cruise control a part of autonomous driving? Yes, Manthan. So there are like six levels of autonomous driving, level 0 to level 5. Level 0 is like bare minimum. Level 1 is cruise control and lane keeping. Level 2 is just having both of them. Level 3 is both of them plus object detection around the vehicle, and then start to moving one layer above for autonomy. So you can just read up just five levels of autonomy. So no one really considers level 0 of autonomous driving autonomy. So you usually have five levels of autonomy or autonomous driving. But in India, we have like everything is 0. So you can just say everything is at level 0 in India. How can you get into Boston Dynamics? Okay, Rishikesh, I think you have pretty high ambitions. Um if you just want to get into Boston Dynamics, you'll have to have a really graduate from a really nice master's course, perhaps in the USA. That's the best case scenario for you, assuming you have still from S.P.I.T. Um, and if you want to get into Boston Dynamics, you can right now start working with companies who are working on prosthetics arms or anything like that, or mobile vehicles. So in that situation, you might get into Boston Dynamics. So this is one of the top companies in the world. So they'll hire only the best among the best people. Um, yeah, so it's pretty difficult to get into that company. Do recruiters give more importance to our skills or our experience in various competitions? Um, so people usually care much about the skills as to what have you done in that competition. So if you're just doing the same competition again and again 10 times in a row, you're not really gaining a lot of knowledge. But if you show that you have a good deal of diversity in your competitions, then it's a really good idea. Yeah. Which language slash softwares are preferred to program robots? Um, so most of the robots are programmed in like C and C plus in embedded C. So there's a microcontroller which will control all of the robot's movements, arms, legs, or any of the peripherals such as motors or controllers. It's majorly right now in C. However, in some scenarios, you might have heard of controlling boards such as a ROS or a single board computer, which is also working in Python or in higher level languages such as C++. So in industry, it is more a majority is C, where C or in Linux. However, if you go for hobbyist space or not very time critical things, then you have what do you call Python, C, or robot operating system. Yeah.
Yeah, Omkar had asked what competitions he can apply for if he wants to go for robotics.
So there are a lot of competitions. Like you can just search any robotics competition. No one really cares how big the competition is. People more or less just care what you did in that competition. So even if it's a local competition from one of the local colleges in Mumbai, such as IIT Bombay also works, TechFest works, or there are some competitions in Delhi which I had attended. You can even go those competitions as well. So it was called Technosion. So what really matters is the project that you're doing, much less than the competition itself. So it's a very low level competition, a very local competition, but your project is very good. You can still it'll still be appreciated. This guy, Bhushan Sonsal, he asked Taliban, like, do you want to go into Taliban? Okay, Taliban, it's like Taiwan, it's also a really great place for robotics right now. You can also like apply a lot of companies in there right now. So a lot of silicon manufacturers in Taiwan, such as Sony um, or a lot of chip making companies are there in Taiwan. So even that's a good place to apply for jobs, robotics.
So, guys, if you have any more questions, you can pose them. Okay, so Manthan has asked, do recruiters give more importance to our skills or our experience in various competitions?
Yeah, I just said that, right? People usually care about your skills a lot more than your um, like. It's a balance of both. So if you are just putting the same competition in a lot of places, and if you count that as experience, it's not really so much. But if you have participated in a diverse set of competitions, it will be a lot more useful for you. Yeah, I'll send this copy to your like IEEE member, and maybe I can they'll share it with you. Yeah, participating. Yeah, e-Yantra competitions are also good. It also gives you an internship at the end of your like if you win the competition. Yeah, even that is a good competition you can apply to. Cool. Any more questions?
So I guess we'll wait for a minute or two if anyone has any questions, and then we'll move on.
Sure, sure. Because Tube is asking if we don't have much time, should we give preference to learning more skills or to participate in more competitions? So I think it should be a balance of both. Like if you have a few months of prep in your hand before the placement starts, maybe what you can do is if you really want to get a job or if you want to get somewhere via placements or anything, then you can just focus on how the placement is going to proceed further, such as if it's going to be a DSA based quiz, then maybe you should just focus on DSA first, improve your skills in that so that at least you clear that bar, and simultaneously at the side, then try to get into competition. If you do good in that, it's well and good, else you'll at least learn something of it. Else, if you just want to play around and do more stuff and you are really comfortable with the skills you have, competitions is a really good idea.
Yeah, so I think that's it with the questions. We can move on to the end.
Sure, sure. That's it from my end as well. Um, you can
Yeah.
reach out to me again on my email ID. I'll just put it on PPT and in the charts as well, or on my phone number as well.
Yes, so I would like to take a moment to thank our guest speaker, Mr. Param Deshpande, for giving us time out of his schedule to guide us with his knowledge and experience. I would also like to thank and appreciate all those who attended this webinar, and I hope you all have had something to take away from this event, be it a general understanding about basic concepts of robotics or a newfound interest in this field. Thank you again. Yeah,
Thank you, Parth. So I think now we can end this session. If anybody has any doubt, still they can ask.
Sure, sure. Thank you all for the session. Have a good time. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye. Thank you.